Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords, and today I'm going to talk to you about something absolutely ridiculous, though it is fascinating because I think it's the first time in like 10 years that this site has been able to get into the news, even in the the gaming field. So the site I'm talking about is. Some of you who are younger and newer to the game or to the hobby, for you, your first encounter with discussion and interactions and social connections regarding RPGs might have been Facebook, or it might have been Google Plus, or you might not even be from that point. It might have been on like YouTube and X, and that's what you think of as like news and discussion on RPGs might be from that, like from just the most modern stuff. But people have been actually talking about D&D since like the time of Usenet, like since the early 80s. People have been talking about D&D on the internet. And there was a very long period after the World Wide Web was created where what was king were the internet forums. And this is what I'm going to tell you guys is about, like, it looks to me like the final nail in the coffin of what was once the biggest and most important, for a little while at least, of all the internet forums, RPGnet. So for those of you, maybe there's some of you that don't know any of this at all, but there were these things called, before there was social media, there was this thing called internet forums. People could go, you'd sign up, and there were all these discussions. Like there were these boards where you could have long, detailed discussions. I've already talked about this in relation to my own still existing, still very active internet forum, therpgsite.com. The link being in the description of this video and all my videos, where you can go, you sign up, it doesn't cost anything, right? And you make your profile, and then you can talk about all these different subjects in various different sort of sub-forums that have to do with, like, the main one is about RPGs, right? The secondary one is about other games. Then there's some smaller ones for other things like ads or news or looking for players or stuff like that, right? And you can have these very, very long conversations. And contrary to things like Facebook or Twitter, or to, the comments section on a YouTube video, these things are meant to last, right? Like, you can go to the RPG site and look up a thread from 2005, right, or 2006. So you can have much longer, more detailed, more interesting conversations on topics. I spoke about this before. I've promoted the RPG site here before. All right, the RPG site is, or at least it was, probably the third largest of the internet forums related, supposedly dedicated to RPGs. But from my point of view, from the point of view of many other people, it's the only one that mattered ultimately, because the other two became very ideologically captured, right? For the starters, the second biggest one was N-World. And N-World was always mostly just about D&D, whereas the RPG site, although it is mostly OSR, is kind of a general RPG discussion forum. And the biggest one of all was RPGnet. Okay, but RPGnet hasn't really been an RPG-related site for about 20 years now. A little bit about the story of the RPGnet, right? RPGnet was one of the earlier forums that were created. This was at the time, after Usenet was kind of taken out by the World Wide Web, and when people were starting to make little sites, then some people started trying to create bigger sites, right? And if I'm remembering correctly, RPGnet was created in 1996, okay? And it became the site, a big site. It got together, it became very successful, and it became a site where you could talk anything about RPGs, right? And there was a time, the late 90s were a wonderful time to be on the internet in some senses, right? In others, they drove you nuts, right? But one of the things that was wonderful about them is you could find people talking about anything, and nobody was, telling you that you were going to be banned if you said something, right? There was the Wild West. It was fantastic, right? And people would have these enormous flame wars over the dumbest things in RPGs, and sometimes about important things too. RPGnet was a part of that. But eventually, RPGnet was sold to Skodos, I believe, and it at that point it was left to be run by a number of moderators instead of the original founders. Right, these moderators quickly infiltrated RPGnet and were much more focused not on the sections of that discussion group that are about RPGs, but on what they called tangency, which were the section of the forums that were meant to be tangential, hence tangency, where they would talk about politics. And these political people, some of whom I think didn't really play RPGs at all, gradually started demanding what they called an emotionally safe environment. So in other words, a safe space. The word didn't exist yet, because I'm talking about, this happened in like 2003, 2004, right? Like ages and ages ago, right? And actually, there came a moment where RPGnet, even though technically RPGnet, you would say, is still the biggest RPG forum, as point of fact, it's not at all clear that its total volume now is mostly RPG posts. I think there's a good chance that it's mostly tangency posts now. And even the RPG posts as such are strictly politicized and politically controlled. They eventually, they are now like an ultra woke site, so ultra woke that they're even irrelevant to woke to like the woke movement itself. They haven't done anything of note in years and years, right? But they got there, I think, starting with about 2004. I think that Bush re-election is what drove some of these people over the edge. It gave them the push to say, no, because we have to protect people from Bush, who's going to be, mustache German man, right? Before anyone ever called Trump mustache German man, they called George W. Bush that, remember? And so they created all these new rules. They started banning everybody they didn't like, which very quickly became anyone who's the slightest bit conservative, and later became anyone who isn't an intensely fanatical, woke leftist, right? And now, today, so we're going fast forward 20 years later, right? Because in that time, they accomplished almost nothing because of all this, except that they still had the momentum of size for a while, but they weren't relevant, right? Like there was way more relevant stuff that happened on the RPG side and even on N-World than them. Right, like the RPG site, for example, was, because it stayed free speech. The RPG site was originally a site called Nutkinland. It kind of failed. It wasn't succeeding. It was pushing itself as a free speech RPG forum, which is exactly what we needed, because at that time both N-World, not as badly as RPGnet, but also RPGnet, were going very hard on censorship. And Nutkinland was meant to be like a place for free conversation. You could say whatever you liked, right? And they didn't work out, but it didn't work out, and I realized because the moderators hadn't done enough work promoting it. And I told them as much. I said, you guys failed, and it's a terrible mistake. And they said, oh yeah? Well, let's try to see you do an RPG pundit. Back then, remember, I was just a blogger, right? But I was already a very well-known and controversial blogger. And they said, yeah, you wouldn't do any better either. You talk big, but you're not going to do it. And I'm like, oh yeah, give me the right to the site, and I'll do it. And so they gave me the right, full power. I'm the owner of the RPG site. I said, okay, and now I'm going to do it. Yeah, and then I did it. And within 6 months, it was the third biggest site. Like it was huge, and it's full of people to this day still doing free speech conversation, right? And so that by itself, first of all, makes it more relevant, but also it's been a major driver in the OSR. It's been a major driver in the anti-woke elements of the RPG hobby. It's got the list of woke and anti-woke companies by Oakule that became very, very a very big deal recently. Well, not recently now. Now it'll have been, what, more than a year now. But yeah, so it's had relevancy, right? Now, RPGnet has finally done something that, if not relevant, makes them noteworthy again. And this is what it is. So RPGnet has just made this post from the chief administrator of the forum saying, new ban. By the way, there's a new ban like every day, right? Every day. So the words, there used to be moments where there's, well, you can't use this word. If you use this word, you will be banned because you're clearly a 1930s German. You have to use this other word instead. And then later they would go, oh, if you use this other word that we told you to use 6 months ago, you're a bigot, right? and you probably wanted George Floyd to die, right? And so then you'll be banned. Stuff like that. They have to constantly revise all the facts. It's like living in like Maoist China or Soviet Russia, So, new ban. Do not post, but this is it. This is like the ultimate one, right? Do not post in support of Trump or his administration. Yes. They have made a blanket ban of any kind of support or justification of anything that Trump or his administration is doing, or to even suggest that his presidency is not bad, right? The following public policies are announced as the result of over a year of serious debate by the moderation team. The decision is as close to unanimous as we will ever get. It will not be the future of the subject of future debate. That's very RPG. That they always are basically saying, look, no, this is absolute, it's total, and it's forever, right? And usually that's true, except that they then the next time they say, well, that wasn't enough, so we have to make it even more extreme, right? We have fully considered the downsides and ultimately decided that we have to stay true to our values. We will not pretend that evil isn't evil, or that it becomes a legitimate difference of political opinion if you put a suit and tie on it. We are banning support of Donald Trump or his administration on the RPGnet forums. This is because his public comments, policies, and the makeup of his administration are so wholly incompatible with our values that formal political neutrality is not tenable. Do you understand that? So you are not allowed to be neutral on this site. Like, that's how far they've gone. So if you say, I mean, I don't support Trump. I just don't care. That's it. You're banned, right? That is enough, right? We can be welcoming to, for example, persons of every ethnicity who want to talk about games. Or we could allow support for open white supremacy, but not both. Okay, that's like a really weird couple of sentences there, but that's what they said. Okay, so their argument is we have to be welcoming of people of every ethnicity who want to talk about games, or we have to be open white supremacists. Those are our two choices. And apparently if you support Trump in any way, you are an open white supremacist, right? Below, we will have an outline of the policy and a very incomplete set of citations. All right, so that's what they're saying here. We have a community here that we've built carefully over time. No, you have a community that was run into the ground and driven away and replaced by a political forum. That's what you have. Nobody goes to RPGnet to talk about RPGs anymore. They all go there just to talk about politics in an environment that nowadays, I mean, you've got Blue Sky, you've got Threads, you've got all these other loser leftist ghettos, right? Like, why would someone want the one that's like as old as you are and that is so weird and irrelevant? Support for elected hate groups are not welcome here. I like that. Elected hate groups. So I guess that's what they mean by Republicans, right? The Republicans are an elected hate group. We can't save the world, but we can protect and care for the small patch that is this board. All right, so first of all, RPGnet, I can't believe I have to tell you this, right? But I will, okay? It's a bit Lisa Simpson or something, but look, if you and your views are being backed by the entirety of academia, Hollywood, the media, and the major left-wing party of your country, you are not the resistance. You are the establishment. And what you are witnessing right now is a throwing up of a revolution of a sort. You could say an overthrow of the establishment. Okay, that is what's going on. But besides that, you're posting in a site that has not been relevant in 20 years. Okay, you're not the RPG site, right? The RPG site, we're still talking about RPGs, and we're having a great time about it. And it's one of the best places to be able to have kind of an open environment of speech where you can talk about it. So I just want to give the rebuttal for the RPG site. Like, we've listened to your policy, we see what you're saying, RPGnet, and I'm giving you now the official policy of the RPG site on this subject. We will continue to support free speech. Of course, there's topicality in our forums, so you can't just go into the main RPG forum and start ranting about Trump or Biden or anything else. You have to post those things only where appropriate, right? But that said, we welcome people to speak in support or against Trump. The people in support of Trump, because, well, most of us support Trump there. I think the majority of the RPG site crowd are pretty pro-Trump. And against Trump, we welcome that too, because we love that moment where you suddenly realize that you're on a site that does not grant you a special protected status of privilege because you're speaking the ideological favorable position. So the second that happens, the second you realize that you'll think it's unfair to you, but you see, that's just it's just that when you have had a lifetime of privilege as a leftist in America, in American internet media, what is actually equality might look like oppression to you, right? Because we're taking away the fact that you everywhere else you can get other people banned while they can't ban you. And now all of a sudden you can't get them banned and they can't ban you. And you just have to defend yourself on the basis of the quality of your arguments and how good or bad your reasoning and logic is, and whether your ideas applied to the real world are successful or not. Which means that, yeah, you're screwed, right? But it's so funny watching them when they suddenly realize, aren't the moderators going to do anything? And then somebody says, this guy's our moderator, and it's the RPG pundit, that's where they go, oh shit. So it's really fun. And, everything goes there. So that's going to be our policy. I just think it is sad, of course, because RPGnet, in those early years, was really impressive. It was really great, and it was big. And unfortunately, it was one of the earliest cases. Remember, we're talking about, it was founded 30 years ago almost, and it was 21 years ago that it went horribly wrong, right? So it's been horribly wrong much longer than the time that it was good. And that's the sad thing about it. Meanwhile, the RPG site, next year, 2026, it's going to celebrate its 20th anniversary under my control. Because before that, it was also RPG site The Nutkin Land and stuff like that. But since I took it over, and it's going great, and people love it. So go check it out, And while you're at it, check out all my other products here. Baptism of Fire, if you want some based Polish role playing in the early medieval period. Lion and Dragon, if you prefer high medieval, and the War of the Roses. World of the Last Sun, if you say screw both of those, I'm going full Gonzo, right? going complete retard. There's World of the Last Sun, which is a really, really great setting for Gonzo gaming. And check out all my other products. My current, you got them all in the description below. My current issue of the Pundit Files is The Bones of St.Florian, which is a an adventure for Baptism of Fire, where you will be trying to rescue the long-lost bones of an ancient Roman Christian saint, and it will require going through great difficulties in the Wilderlands and facing dangerous animals, bandits, pagan renegades, witches, demonic creatures, and Slovakians. So it's a great adventure, and it only costs $3.50, only at the Red Room. You can get it if you can buy The Bones of St. Florian or any of the other various issues of the Pundit Files. Also, check out 101 Sarmatians for Baptism of Fire. It's out now. It's been very well received by the people who picked it up. It's a complete guide to the aristocracy in the Baptism of Fire setting with lots of intrigues, some map stuff going on, lots of 101 new NPC profiles, and lots of random tables, and more stuff on the veneration of saints in the Polish Christian world, with mechanics for how your character too can get a patron saint and pray to them for benefits. So be sure to check all that out. Check out all my other stuff. It's all in the links below. And I guess that's everything for today. I just had to share this because it's just so ridiculous. Like, imagine banning the President of the United States, twice elected, super popular, the current administration. Nobody on RPGnet can say anything about it unless they say, these people are 1930s Germans and they're horrible, right? You can never say a good thing. That's what they said. These people are so scared of them, of losing power, right? They're so horrified by reality that they have to go with a path of complete and total denial, right? The only reality that they will allow there, on pain of eternal separation from the site, is that you say that Trump is 1930s mustache man and he is irredeemably evil, and everybody who voted for him is irredeemably evil, and everybody who works for him is irredeemably evil. That is the only way that they can allow you to be there, because everything else destroys their fragile little bubble. It's just pathetic. All right, sorry. This is I think a video that some people are going to find interesting, and some people are going to find personally interesting if you're from that time, and other people are going to be like, "What the hell did I just watch?" I'm sorry about that, guys. For those of you who are not particularly interested in the internet forums, but I just saw this and I couldn't believe it. Right, like that's it. This is going to be the tombstone of RPGnet. All right, currently smoking. This is a Lorenzetti Oversized plus Argento Roots.